could have said, since the poor vower who vowed to bring offerings for a poor Mitzvah was included in the dispensation afforded to the poor Mitzvah, that means he could bring a lesser value, then a poor vower who vowed to bring offerings for a rich Mitzvah would similarly be included in that dispensation, and thus he would be required to bring only the offerings of a poor Mitzvah. Okay, that's not so clear that that's what we would have thought. But the Gemara says, Kamash Malan, that we don't think that, and he has to bring the sacrifices of the rich man.
Anyway, no matter how
even though he's poor.
Yeah, boy, he's stuck. Be careful.
Now the Gemara explains what we said, Lefisha Matzinu Be'erchen, because this is back to the Mishnah, because we find by Erachin. What do we find there? That Ani Sherech Esa Asher, Neisen Erech Ani. If a poor man pledges the value of a rich man, so he gives a poor man because he can't afford it. Yachalaf Zekain, maybe also by Karbanas should be the same thing. So Talmud Marim Dalhu. No. By Karbanas it says only on the one, the Mitzvah himself, if he's poor, that's what makes a difference. But the one that's pledging, that who, excludes the one that's pledging. And there's compassion only on the Mitzvah. If the one that's pledging is wealthy, he has to bring a wealthy sacrifice, even though the Mitzvah is poor. Rabbi Damar, what about Rabbi? He says, he says that it's exactly the same by Erachin. So, how does it work by Erachin? By Erachin, I follow the one that's pledging entirely. And Rabbi says that if by Erachin, the person the person that's being pledged would have also made a pledge. Like, let's say, for example, a wealthy man would pledge, I'm giving my own Erachin, my own value, and comes along a poor person and says, I'm just like him, so he has to give the wealthy man's value.
So how do you know if he's poor
So,
or rich? His truth is come on. Like how much?
Here we're saying just what he can afford, if he can afford it. Someone's got to evaluate that. But by Karbanas, it seems to be exactly the same. Because by the Mitzvah, someone's pledging the Mitzvah's, what the Mitzvah needs to bring. If the Mitzvah is wealthy, then the one that pledges also has to give the wealthy one. If the Mitzvah is wealthy, then the one that pledged, even if he's poor, has to give the wealthy one. So it turns out, according to Rabbi, that by Erachin and by Karbanas, it's the same halacha. That's Rabbi's point. But the problem is that we had a pasuk that needs to teach us this by Karbanas, the imdalhu, that only if the Mitzvah himself is poor, and we don't care if the other guy is poor, even if the guy that pledges is poor, he still has to bring a wealthy man's Karbanas. The problem is, why do I need that pasuk? It's exactly like Erachin. I'll just compare it to Erachin. Because by Erachin, if the man pledged it himself, pledged his own, and he was wealthy, and the other person says, I'll give what he gives, so he has to give the wealthy man, even though he was poor. And that's exactly by Karbanas. If the Mitzvah is wealthy, and the poor man pledges the wealthy man's Karbanas, he has to give the wealthy man's Karbanas. So it's exactly the same, Erachin. So we're asking, according to Rabbi, Alama Amar, the Erachin Kain, is it Alma, Gimel? You take out Alma, Basar Chiva the Gavras, Lina. We see that you follow the person himself, his own obligation. But I don't need a pasuk to tell me that. If Erachin and Mitzayra, according to Rabbi, are exactly the same, so why do we need the pasuk of who by Mitzayra to tell me that it's different? It's not different, it's exactly the same. The Gemara explains that Lamute Mitzayra Ani Umadira Yashir. This we didn't talk about. If the Mitzayra is poor, but the one that's pledging is wealthy, I could have thought that he only has to give a poor man's, because the Mitzvah himself is poor. Kamash Malan Vim Dalhu, that the Mitzayr is poor, then and he's the one that's giving it, then yes. But if the one that's pledging it is wealthy, then we don't. Then he has to give the wealthy one. Now Rashi says that how did the Rabbanan know this? Because the Rabbanan were using the who to tell me that they didn't have that comparison. They need the who to tell me even the general case. So he says like this: the Rabbanan don't need the pasuk at all, because by Erachin you always follow the one that's vowing. So here also we'll follow the one that's vowing, because the one that's taking the vow is wealthy. Okay. Yeah, because there's the Salkadait Chamina has different pshatim in Rashi.
So this mission is sort of an amendment to the first mission of the Masechta, right?
Did we mention Hesed Yad earlier?
We went through this discussion about what a person can pay, and the evaluation of his ability to pay, and a reduction due to his situation.
Which
I mean, it must have been earlier.
maybe in the second parak. Yeah. The second parak, we did have Hesed Yad, that you can't pay less than one coin. That was the second parak, right? The first parak was who is obligated. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Haya ani v'hesher. Let's say he was poor originally, before when he took the pledge, but then he got wealthy before he gave it. Or Asher v'heni, he started off wealthy, and then he got poor. So Nisan Erech Asher, he has to give the pledge of an Asher. Wealthy. He has to give the full price. So if he was wealthy at the time of paying, or he was wealthy at the time of pledging, he has to pay the value of a wealthy person, which is the full price. Rabbi Yehuda says, he's supposed to add in the word afilu ani vehesher, even if he was poor, but then he got wealthy. V'chazer v'heni, and then he got poor again, which is common for people. The money comes and goes. So, like waves. So Nisan Erech Asher, because he had some wealth in the middle, so he has to pay that the full price. Aval b'karbanas einakein. By sacrifices, it's different, because by sacrifices it always follows the time of bringing the sacrifice, not the time of when the tzaras is or whatever. Now it says afilu meis aviv. Let's say we're going back on Erachin. Let's say the father passed away. He left him 10,000 coins. Ships in the sea. Uvalai beravuis. How do they translate beravuis? It's coming to him with tens of thousands. I'm not sure what it's adding up with that. Ein lehektish baklum. But because he doesn't have that money yet, he's not considered wealthy. It's very important.
Boat in the ocean is not considered yours until you come to the port.
I know people that have a big inheritances coming to them, and they're just waiting, living like as if they're wealthy, and
Trust fund.
And then what happens? I haven't seen the end of it, but they keep talking about one day.
The worst is when somebody has a lawsuit. You're going to win the lawsuit. It's going to be you borrow against it.
That's not good.
It destroys your life.
The Gemara says,
You don't get it. You don't win what?
Ani vehesher.
Before you get it destroyed.
So don't count your chickens before they hatch. That's one. But in this case, they've upped their lifestyle, and
Right.
it doesn't pan out, and it's destroyed.
Ani vehesher. People that win the lottery, sometimes they borrow against the payments that are coming in because it comes in by year.
Most lottery
And then-
winners are broke within 5 years.
And it's become a big business now, lending to people in the expectation of a successful lawsuit. The hedge funds now specialize in that. They do well.
The guy loses, right?
Ani v'hesher, someone that was poor but became wealthy. What's the pasuk that tells me that he has to give the full price? Asher tasig yada neither, he could afford it. Asher v'heni, if he's wealthy but became poor, what's the pasuk that says he has to give the full price? Al pi asher tasig, according to what he pledged. Tasig yada neither, according to what the person pledged. And that's what he could afford at the time of the pledging. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi says, even if he was poor, wealthy, and poor again, he has to give the wealthy one. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the pasuk? Amar krav machu me'arkecha, ad sheyeh b'machusai. Mach means poor. If he's too poor to pay it, he needs to be poor mitchilas avad seifa, from beginning to end. But this person had some wealth in the middle, so it doesn't count. That dispensation, right, for this fellow doesn't apply because he was wealthy in the middle. Elameyata, the problem is,
What's beginning and what's end?
I guess
End
from the
is when
pledge
the
to the
korban.
payment. Okay, yeah. So now in the karban, Elameyata, let's quote the pasuk by the karban. V'imdalhu, right? Is that what they're doing now? Does it say that V'imdalhu is the pasuk by the karban? Elameyata. Afforded to the poor Mitzayra by the Karban V'imdalhu, if he is poor. And over here it also has the word who. And over here we didn't say that it's dependent on if he was wealthy at any time. We said it only has to do with when he actually brings it. So Hachinami Ad Shebidalusim Mitchilasav Ad Saifai. He would need to be poor from when he was a Mitzayra, when he took the pledge to bring it, all the way until when it's brought. And that's not so. Because really, it has to do with at the time of bringing it that dispensation is made if he's poor, and it doesn't have to do with any other time. And if you're going to say that that's the same story, that he has to be poor all the way through from Mitzayra, from beginning to end. Mitzayra that brings his karbanos, ani behesher. If he was poor and he got wealthy, or asher veheni, or he was wealthy and he got poor, so hakol haylach achar chatas. It follows by what his value was at the time of the sin offering, because he has to bring a chatas and asham in the birds. So we say that at the time of the chatas, if he was bringing the wealthy one, so then all the everything else needs to go after that. What he is at that time, because the chatas is actually the one that could be birds or the animal. Divrei Reb Shimon, that's Reb Shimon's point of view. Rabbi Yehuda Imar Kol Halach Achar Asham. Rabbi Yehuda says it goes after the Asham, what he was at that time, the guilt offering.
I don't understand.
In other words, he didn't bring all the sacrifices. So, but he switches between, his wealth fluctuates in between bringing the
What does it
Asham.
say? Chatas and Asham, I don't understand.
No, was he wealthy at that time or was he poor at that time? Because that determines what bracket he goes under.
Rabbi says it goes after the Chatas.
Reb Shimon says it goes after the Asham.
What's the difference between them?
Oh, the question is, what was he at the time of his offering of the Asham? Was he wealthy or poor?
And what would he say about Chatas?
He says that doesn't determine. If he brought the Asham and he was wealthy, then he brings the Chatas as a wealthy person. Even though he didn't have any money then, and he could have brought the Chatas as a poor person, but no, he was wealthy at the Asham, he's considered wealthy. And V'tanya Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Emar Kol Halach Achar Tziparim. Everything follows the birds. So what's our question here? That it has to do with at the time of his bringing of those sacrifices, not if he was machu, that we look at the whole thing. The Gemara says, "It's maralam Rav Yehuda Marav Shlashim Mikra Chadasha." That this is learned from a pasuk. This is different. It's learned from a pasuk. Asher Lei Tasig Yadi B'Tarasa. Reb Shimon Sav Davar Mechaper. Ma'ini Chatas. Reb Shimon says that it's referring to his atonement. That's what he needs to have the wealth for. Rabbi Yehuda Savar Davar Machshir, something that allows him to come back in to come back into the community, and that's referring to his the asham, that he can come back to bring sacrifices and whatever. Ben Yaakov Savar Hagarim Leitara, something that gives him the purity. Okay, let's leave it over here.